Dr. B joins us now, our friend Dr. Brent Wallis, Chief Medical Officer of People's Health, to talk about financial scams. According to the FBI, each year millions of Americans fall victim to some type of financial fraud. And unfortunately, older adults are often targeted. The con artists might try to get your Medicare number or other personal information, and Dr. B joins us now to help you avoid falling prey to these people that are just out there circling, trying to find somebody to scam or take advantage of. How are you, Dr. B?
Hey, Tommy, I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm okay. Good to talk to you again. Tell me about maybe some ways to identify a possible scam, things that people might contact you with.
Sure. Yeah, there's a ton of these going around, especially right now. Close to the holidays, and we're in the Medicare open enrollment too. So, usually a couple of things to watch for that are very suspicious is anytime somebody threatens you with legal action or arrest, especially via an email or a text message. That's suspicious. That's not legitimate at all. And then, sometimes scammers will use emails or text where they'll include your personal information, but what you really need to watch for is what else is in there. Are there misspelled words or grammar mistakes? A lot of the scammers are not from the United States, and so while they're very intelligent, sometimes they make those mistakes in text, and that's a good thing to watch for. Really, anytime somebody requests any payment from you, especially if they say it needs to be cash or a wire transfer, or especially prepaid cards, Xbox cards and Google cards, things like that, the government's never going to ask you to pay for something using that. And then particularly with Medicare, anybody who says they can increase your benefits or what you get through your insurance in exchange for a payment, that is something that's very suspicious. Medicare and the Social Security Administration will never threaten you with arrest or any sort of legal action, especially via email or text. They're going to issue a letter to you. It's going to be very governmental. So that's something to kind of watch for.
It always is as though they try to prey upon emotion and appeal to emotion, misdirection, so you're reacting emotionally and not rationally. Of course, among the many scams, one of them that'll really hit you emotionally, if you're not on the lookout for it, is the grandparent scam. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, Dr. B?
Yeah, sure. And that's a very good point. People are rushing around, trying to get things done post-hurricane, holidays, and so you may give up a little more information than you should if somebody calls you. But, the grandparent scam is where, a scammer basically either calls you or texts you, and they may say something like, hey, Grandma, or, Grandpa, do you know who this is? And what they're trying to get you to do is say the name of your grandchild. And if you do that, then essentially they can assume the identity of that grandchild. And what they may do is they may kind of insidiously say, I need money for a car repair, or maybe I've gotten in trouble. I can't pay my rent. Don't tell my parents about this, because they're trying to get you to really help them out monetarily. And so if they call you with a story like that, you definitely don't want to send any money to them. If you think it might be a relative, especially a grandchild, hang up and try to call your grandchild back, or call the parent, your child, and say, what's going on with this. That's the best way to avoid that scam. But unfortunately, people many times will go ahead and they'll send money to whoever's reaching out to them.
And it's amazing how, much like a phony psychic, they can draw information out of you, and you don't realize how much you tell them, and then they spit it back at you, and you think they know, but they really don't, because they're just working on what you told them. How can somebody protect themselves from that type of scam?
Yeah, they're very crafty, exactly like you said. They'll take little bits of what you say and kind of turn it around. So, like I mentioned, one of the best things to do is if somebody calls you, you don't necessarily know who they are. So, hang up the phone and try to call them back with a number that you've got stored in your phone, or a number that so you can ask specifically what's going on. If they ask specific questions that would be identifiable things about you or your loved one, you don't want to offer any information to them at all. Really, one of the best things to do is just hang up the phone. Don't volunteer any personal information at all to that unknown caller, and be suspicious of any text messages or emails that you receive when you can't verify who they're from.
Yeah, text message scams seem to be on the rise. What kind of phony text should the people that are listening right now be aware of?
Yeah, text message scams are getting really terrible. In fact, fortunately, a lot of phones and cellular carriers are starting to identify those and hopefully move them into a spam folder on your phone so that you don't even have to deal with them. But one of the biggest ones you'll see, actually I've gotten this one myself a couple of times, is one that looks like it's coming from your bank, and it may say something like your debit card is locked, enter your PIN in order to unlock it. And obviously what they're trying to do there is they're trying to get your PIN, not just for that bank account, but also people tend to use their PINs across multiple accounts. So then they may be able to use that to gain access to some of your banking. And so you definitely don't want to respond to any text where you don't recognize the number. Sometimes they'll even include a link in a text. So if you see anything that's underlined in the text, be very careful not to click on it, because if you click on it, you're kind of confirming that you're there, and it may even take you to a website that could cause some damage to your phone.
All right, a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation talking about COVID-19 scams and Medicare fraud, and avoid being a victim of that. Dr. B, our guest, our friend, Dr. Brent Wallis, Chief Medical Officer of People's Health. WWL First News Time, 8:20. Let's look at traffic. 8:25, WWL First News Time. I'm Tommy Tucker, talking to our friend, Dr. B, Dr. Brent Wallis, Chief Medical Officer of People's Health, about avoiding financial scams. And unfortunately, the scammers are out there, and it's like sharks circling around a fish that's just eaten and going about their business, and you're not even looking out for them, but they're looking out for you. So, Doc, what about some COVID-19 vaccine scams that are going on?
Yeah, unfortunately, the pandemic has really opened up an opportunity for these scammers to really try to steal your identity or get money from you. And, so there's a whole bunch of scams around vaccines or medical supplies. Someone may call you and say, you're eligible for a free corona test or a home-based test, maybe medical supplies or mask. But they're going to ask you for your Medicare number or some personal information or both. They're really just trying to get that information from you so that they can use that information against you. So, the other one that we've seen, there's been, multiple stimulus checks over the last year and a half. And so, people are looking out for that money. They think there may be more money coming. And so scammers are trying to use that to reach out to you saying, for instance, you're eligible for another stimulus check, but you need to give me this personal information so I can get that check to your house. Just keep in mind, don't give them any information, especially if you don't know who's calling you.
Yeah, whenever anybody offers anything for free, your radar should go off, don't you think?
Definitely. There's very few things in life that are free.
What about Medicare fraud?
Yeah, Medicare fraud has been a problem, pretty much always. And the one thing people don't necessarily realize is that red and blue card that has your Medicare ID number on it is like a credit card. You don't ever want to give that number out to anyone, especially someone that has contacted you on the phone. It's similar to your Social Security card, your health plan number, or your credit card. You just don't want to give that information out to someone that you don't know, because they can turn it around and use it against you. So, a couple of things to keep in mind. Medicare is never going to contact you on the phone directly without you having given them permission and ask you for that Medicare number. So if someone cold calls you and asks for that information, it's probably not legitimate. Medicare is also never going to try to sell you anything over the phone. So that's a big red flag right there. Like we said, anybody who's promising to give you something for nothing, it's probably too good to be true. And then the other thing to remember, there's even people doing things door to door. So Medicare is never going to send someone to your home to visit you. So anytime somebody comes to your door, make sure you're a little suspect. There definitely are some people, that can be legitimate. Home health companies, for example, may come and help you out at your home, but they're not going to ask you for personal information. They're going to already have it. So just keep in mind that Medicare number is just like a credit card number, and don't give it out.
If you have become a victim of a scam, or somebody that has, what do you do, Doc? What's the best way to deal with it?
Yeah, the best thing to do, if money was involved, you definitely want to contact your bank right away, let them know. Hopefully they can recover some of those funds or stop additional funds from being taken out of your account. You want to call your local police department and then really adult protective services as well. If you think this is COVID-19 related fraud, something related to the virus, you can also call Health and Human Services. They're at 800 HHS TIPS to let them know. And then the Department of Justice has created a hotline really specifically for older adults who think they've been a victim of fraud. And you can reach out to them at 833 Fraud 11. Let them know about your situation. Chances are they've probably heard of the scam and they're going to know what's going on with it, so they can provide some resources to you and help.
Valuable information, Doctor. I hope we can help people not get scammed this season, because unfortunately there are people out there just looking. Hey, Doc, I hope you and your family have a great Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Tommy. You too.
You bet. To find out more about People's Health, you can go to peopleshealth.com. You can call 1-800-978-9765. You can visit the People's Health United Healthcare Medicare Center. That's at 3017 Vets in Metairie by Party City. Appointments are recommended, but walk-ins are welcome. And you can follow People's Health on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram.